Coldshot is the baseline operator for the Hunter subclass. This means that her kit is very rudimentary, meant to exemplify the core characteristics of the subclass. Just as Hunters are, Coldshot wants to deal a shit ton of damage to her targets. Hunters have the highest base attack out of any of the sniper subclasses. Their trait modifies this even further to 120% of their attack as physical damage on every attack. You'd think that this would be counteracted by a slow attack speed, but Hunters actually have the second fastest attack speed among snipers at 1.6 seconds, only beat out by marksmen and tied with heavy shooters. The actual balancing mechanism is their ammo mechanic. Hunters can shoot a certain number of shots before needing to reload. Normally, if they initiate an attack with no enemies around, they'll just reload while waiting. But if a hunter needs to attack while empty, they need to reload before shooting. This ends up doubling Coldshot's attack interval from 1.6 seconds to 3.2 seconds. I'll refer to this mode of attacking as being hellbent for this video. The incredibly high damage per hit of Hunters makes them ideal targets for dealing with enemies with moderate to high defense, specifically bosses. And although the range is definitely unconventional, its large reach and narrowness allows Hunters to pinpoint and focus on important targets, minimizing ammo waste. Their module's trait change does try and make using them a bit more lenient, as they'll reload 2 shots at once while hellbent. Now, all I've just said can be used to judge both Coldshot and Ray, as it's just the nature of the Hunter subclass. But as I said earlier, Coldshot is the baseline operator for Hunters. It's important that she represents what makes Hunter special, and that her kit is good at teaching players about the subclass. Well, what's her kit then? Her S1 is Attack Up Gamma, a 100% attack increase for 30 seconds. Assuming an Elite 2 level 50 Coldshot with maxed module, this takes her from 1080 attack to 2160 attack. And remember, every single shot is 120% of Coldshot's attack, multiplicative by the way. So she's attacking with 2592 attack during uptime, which is a bit higher than Totter's S2 single target instance damage. The skill itself also has a 50% uptime, so half the time you're doing an absurd amount of damage. And as I've stated in my Crusher video, a 100% attack boost doesn't mean double damage. Defense reduction is flat, this attack boost isn't, which can lead to a significant boost in damage output against enemies that would negate a significant amount of Coldshot's damage or downright damage threshold her. It's a generic skill, yeah, but with how Hunters function, being focused around heavy instance damage, a skill that does nothing but make them better at what they're already good at doesn't ruin functionality. However, Coldshot's S2 is where things get pretty spicy. Her S2 boosts her attack by 140% instead of 100%, and makes her attacks inflict slow for a second. The skill's uptime is exactly the same as her S1, just having worse cycle time overall 80 seconds compared to 60. The skill also has the upside of increasing her reload duration from 1.6 seconds to 2.4 seconds. Yeah, you heard that right. Upside. The biggest complaint of Coldshot is that, unlike Ray, she doesn't try and circumvent the ammo mechanic. Instead, Coldshot wants to embrace a lack of ammo, as her talent makes her shots a lot more lethal while hellbent with her S2 active. Coldshot's talent in Module Level 3 increases the damage of her next shot to 141% of her attack if an attack hasn't been made in 2 seconds. I'm assuming max potentials because she is a welfare operator after all. Her S2's reload duration modifier ends up pushing her reload animations over that 2-second threshold, allowing her talent to trigger right before she shoots. So although it does slow down her damage, it doesn't decrease it. Coldshot's total attack interval increases to 4 seconds with her S2 active while hellbent. She performs at around 1100 DPS due to her increased reload interval, where without it, she would only do 972 DPS. When it comes to a subclass that is entirely defined by insane damage per hit, doing 4.4k damage every bullet definitely helps. And yes, even compared to her S1, Coldshot performs better while hellbent with her S2. So why ever use her S1? Well, its cycle time is better than her S2 while having the same uptime, and it's also less punishing if you end up wasting ammo on random enemies, as although her S2 does a shit ton more damage while hellbent, doing 4.4k damage to a slug ain't that much different than 2.7k damage. You may be wondering though, if Coldshot only needs 2 shots without attacking to proc her talent, yet her reload is 3.2 seconds, why doesn't she always proc on a normal reload? Why does she need her S2 to be active? Well, it's a little weird and pretty misleading with how Hypergriff presents it in game, but this is how I think it works. Shoutouts to Sammy. Coldshot's attack interval is 1.6 seconds. This encompasses a wind up and a wind down period. She winds up to shoot and then winds down after shooting. Her attack takes place somewhere in the middle of this 1.6 second interval. The actual 1.6 second interval is the sum of the attack's wind down added to the next attack's wind up. This makes her talent misleading in that it doesn't start counting until Coldshot's wind down finishes, it doesn't stop counting until her wind up starts. Coldshot's talent wants her to not be in her attack animation for a total of 2 seconds for it to proc. Or more simply, Coldshot actually needs to not attack for 3.6 seconds in order to proc her talent. Although her talent doesn't count her attack animation, it does count her reload animation. So during the time she shoots while she's reloading, the timer is going, but her reload animation is only 1.6 seconds. So if Coldshot is attacking while hellbent, you won't proc her talent. With her S2 active though, her reload animation is increased by 0.8 seconds, which pushes the interval over that 2-second threshold. So now Coldshot procs on every single shot. So as counterproductive as it may initially seem, it's actually pretty good to activate Coldshot's S2 while hellbent, as it intensely increases her damage output, as her talent's modifier multiplicatively stacks with all of her other boosts. But is it always advisable to save her S2 for when you're hellbent? No, her S2's DPS is insane at over 1900 DPS with a full magazine, compared to about 1100 DPS while hellbent. Now, the higher instance damage is still a benefit, but Coldshot's instance damage is already so extreme that the instance damage boost only helps against enemies who have more than 2260 defense. So I guess if you're dealing with the Chapter 13 Blood Ambers, it's better to save Coldshot's S2 for the reload. So what does all of this really say about Coldshot? Well, she does over 4,000 fucking damage in a single shot. What the fuck do you want me to say? Listen, hunters aren't just physical damage mystic casters. Oh no, they're fucking ranged crushers. They annihilate enemies of any size. Coldshot's even capable of putting some dents in Patriot with some buffs. Ultimately, it is hard to give any in-depth analysis for Coldshot because, like crushers, hunters are defined by doing a shit ton of damage and then some. And although you may expect similar performance out of other sniper subclasses focused on instance damage like besiegers and deadeyes, hunters vastly outperform them in the pure damage department. Does that make Coldshot the best sniper ever? God no. Her range limits her placement enough that her usage is more on a stage-to-stage basis, and even if she has a tile that she will work on, you can't expect her to perform well at all against swarms. Hunters love murdering threatening elites and bosses, but when it comes to general stuff, leave that to the other snipers. Overall, I really like Coldshot, same reason why I love crushers. General awkwardness in her function makes her interesting to apply to stages, and her damage output is just way too much fun not to abuse when given the chance. This kind of instance damage doesn't come lightly at all without 6 stars. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. Hope you have an amazing day, and I love you all.